Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to the Future of Hope Ministries YouTube channel. I'm Pastor Ed Anderson, and tonight for Wednesday, I want to do a final update on the General Conference session that occurred in St. Louis, Missouri, between the periods of July 9th through July 12th. If you are watching this for the first time and you're wondering, you're saying to yourself, I thought General Conference started July 3rd. Well, it did. If you go on the YouTube channel, you will notice there that I have a part 1. And you can see kind of what happened from day 1 up through day 6. So this program or this recording or this live broadcast is intended for people who were not able to attend the General Conference session, but you're very interested to know what happened there and what were some of the major decisions, what is the midterm and long-term goals of the church. And so because Future of Hope Ministries has such a broad base of people watching all over the world, we have been getting a lot of interest in the update. So I wanted to finish tonight so right now where I'm recording or broadcasting from is Phoenix, Arizona. And currently right now it is 7:30 in what we call the Phoenix time. We're in the Mountain Standard Time Zone. But you might be watching the recording wherever you are. Everything I'm talking about just occurred. So today is Wednesday. General Conference ended on the 12th, so that was literally 4 days ago. So everything that I'm talking about is fresh. So I think that if I had to sum up, and we're going to go through details of the last half of the General Conference session, there were everything from crucial policy decisions to powerful worship moments that occurred on Sabbath. This is definitely going to be an interesting update because I will tell you about some of the controversies that may have popped up and some areas that we're going to have to watch for the next several years. So moving right directly to day 7, July 9th, I think that 3 different areas were accomplished that day. So there was a lot of voting, manual updates for the church manual, and new vice presidents. Delegates completed the election of General Conference vice presidents. They also elected regional departmental directors and also the division leaders. So if you're wondering who is in your particular division, wherever you might be, you'll have to go to the various websites and just see who the new leaders are for your division and your areas, particularly in the regional departmental directors, which there was a lot of change there. So for us in the United States and in Canada, we are in the North American division. There is also the Inter-American division that covers 5 countries in South America, including all the Caribbean, Cuba, Puerto Rico, etc. And then in the Asia and Africa and Europe, they're divided into multiple different divisions. So you can always go on the General Conference website and just it'll direct you to your various division to see who the new officers are. There was a focus placed on diversity and mission experience, ensuring that leaders reflect the global body that they serve. So they were very careful to make sure that they were selecting people that represented and reflected the specific global region that they were serving. So I think we got a good diversity of leaders serving in the world church as we look at the General Conference. There were some updates to clarify pastoral responsibilities and credentialing in the church manual. So we can look forward to some church revisions coming very soon in that area. There was a second area of the church manual that we need to watch out for, and that is adjustments to the role of local church boards. So if you're watching this and you belong to a local church board in your local Seventh-day Adventist Church, there have been some adjustments to the role that the local church boards will be playing. And in addition to that, they will be doing a revision on disciplinary processes. So I'm going to be very curious myself to see, because we have always used what we call a progressive disciplinary process. I'm pretty sure that a lot of that is now going to include conflict resolution and making sure that we follow the Matthew 18 guideline, but we'll wait and see as soon as that is released to us. The third area of the church manual that we need to be watching out for is some language changes to make the manual a lot more mission focused. So when we look at the church manual, it's just a lot of policy. What they're going to look at is how language can change to make that church manual a lot more mission focused and also globally applicable. So when you read the church manual in its current condition, it makes a lot of sense for those of us in North America division in Canada and maybe parts of Europe and maybe even sections of Asia. But when you take a look at the whole world church and the broad basis of people that represent Christian Adventists around the world, they want to make sure that the church manual is sensitive to and applicable to their particular regions. So again, we're going to look out for that. Now, here's what's interesting about it. Delegates also voted to empower the General Conference Executive Committee to continue refining sections that were not finalized during the session. So power was given to the GC Executive Committee to make further changes. So we're going to be seeing, curious what else is coming down the pipeline there. And why do they do this? They want to ensure that there is momentum and that it doesn't stop any further refinements and adjustments that need to be made just because at the General Conference they adjourned that section of the meeting. Okay, on day 8, July 10th, I think the focus was on global public affairs and religious liberty. There was a large report given about religious liberty. So the Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Department, there's an acronym called PARL, P-A-R-L, the Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Department. They gave a serious warning. And the warning was that there is a rise in global pressures on conscience and religious freedom. So those of you who don't know, in certain areas of the 1040 window, if you're a Christian, you heard that there's a lot of persecution. But our church is not immune to this or from that. It looks like we are also beginning to see a lot of global pressure on religious freedom and conscience. They gave some examples. They cited anti-conversion laws. In some countries, if a pastor like myself or an evangelist comes in, it's actually criminal to make an appeal and have people give their lives to Jesus and then go into the waters of baptism. That is something that will get a pastor or an evangelist thrown in prison because they have anti-conversion laws. But not only the pastor, but the church that was responsible, people who are responsible for that, and also the people who gave their life to Jesus. Another example they cited was Sabbath challenges in workplaces. So we're beginning to see a lot more challenges, people who are forced to work on the Sabbath. Now, those individuals in the United States that have these issues, your pastor can actually write a letter because the Constitution of the United States makes it unconstitutional for an employer to prohibit an employee from worshiping on their day of worship, in this case, the Sabbath. But there are other places around the world that don't have those constitutional protections. And so the Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Department gave an update that there are places globally that are beginning to see a lot more Sabbath challenges in workplaces. So we're beginning to see a rise in some areas that we've been very concerned about for the last 70 years or 80, 90 years of our church. Thirdly, there is a growing concern for digital surveillance. And so this was mentioned, digital surveillance, everything from cameras to how they track how you spend your money. If you go on websites, they have these cookies that you accept. Well, there is a growing concern about this digital surveillance. And obviously, we would be concerned about that because of our knowledge of Revelation 13 and also our growing concern that there will be a higher focus on persecuting those who are in the minority. So we already see a part of that happening in the United States with the immigration issues. The church reaffirmed its commitment to religious liberty for everybody. So the General Conference is definitely making a focus that all members of the church will be able to have some sort of advocacy through public affairs and the religious liberty department. Several delegates testified about persecution and hardship that's happening in their local regions. And I have traveled around the world. I know that this is true. We see people who give their life to Jesus, but they're kicked out of homes. And it's a growing concern because it's becoming more common. So this is just a powerful reminder. And they mentioned this there at the General Conference session, that we are not only defenders of Adventist liberty, but we are defenders of liberty for all people everywhere. So, and that was the focus, is that this is not just an issue for Adventists, but this is an issue for even people who are in different faiths, like Methodists and Baptists and non-denominational Christians are being persecuted, and there's anti-conversion laws, and it's coming down heavy on them. So the church has positioned that we would be able to advocate for everybody that is not able to discover democracy and freedom in the religious liberty area. Okay, July 11th, that was day 9. The focus was on youth, women's ministries, and celebrating missions around the globe. So I'm talking about youth and young adults first. There were some powerful testimonies that were shared by youth delegates, and they emphasized 3 areas. So the youth that gave their testimonies emphasized digital evangelism, that this is a way to reach people their age. Another focus on mental health ministries. So being able to not just do evangelism from prophecy or Bible message, but somehow bringing in a mental health aspect to that. And many of you know, who are fans of the Future of Hope website, I'm currently doing a series right now called The Road Back to You, which is the gospel of Jesus, but through a mental health aspect. But this is something that the youth and young adults were saying is very important in our day to day. The third area they talked about was a desire for authentic community and leadership inclusion. So again, we've been doing a very good job. We're doing better at including youth and young adults at every level of church governance and leadership. But what they were looking for, a desire for authentic community and leadership inclusion, not just a token position on the board, but really give them a say and let them lead in areas of the ministry. And they had one youth leader declare that we're not the future of the church, we are the church of today, which we agree. So that was an area of focus on day 9, July 11th. Women's ministry was the second big area that day. Reports celebrated how women around the world are driving Bible studies. They're actually planting churches and leading outreach in hard-to-reach areas. And I have personally witnessed this myself. When you're out in the front lines, it doesn't really matter if you're a man or a female. If you're out there doing Bible studies, praise the Lord. If you're planting churches and leading outreach in hard-to-reach areas and doing evangelism, go forth and do it, because gender doesn't matter when you're working for the Lord. So this was brought up at that session on July 11th. There were definitely some calls that were made to expand support, to expand leadership training for women, as well as to recognize women in mission. So that was one of the areas that they focused on that day. And then they closed out the evening with a celebration service. So there was a very moving international mission report showcasing lives that were transformed in various regions around the world. For example, Philippines, which of course many of you know, I do a lot of work there in the Philippines. I'm headed to Kenya, Africa, and then next year I'll be going to Zimbabwe. But there was a lot of testimony coming out of Africa, South America, Europe, refugee camps worldwide. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in evangelism happening in various regions around the globe, particularly those areas that are in the 1040 window. But it was a very moving international mission report. Hundreds responded to a call for mission commitment when they made the call, both local and global. So we see a shift happening at all levels of the church to go out and preach the gospel in hard-to-reach areas in all the regions around the world. Day 10, that was the final day, July 12th, final Sabbath worship and closing appeal. That morning was amazing. Thousands gathered in person and online for one of the most spirit-filled Sabbaths in General Conference session history. There was a lot of powerful preaching, a lot of multicultural music, which we enjoy, and stirring appeals that move the heart to instill this sense of mission. In fact, the new president, Erton Köhler, gave his first official Sabbath message, and check out the title, Forward in Faith, the World Needs a Prophetic People. So it feels like it's going back to the original call of who we are as a movement. Forward in faith, because we can't do anything on our own. It's in the faith of Jesus. The world, the entire globe, needs a prophetic people. Now, we know that there's good work being done by many other institutions, organizations, denominations, but what makes the Adventist Church different is that we have a treasure trove of knowledge from prophecy. We are people of a prophetic movement, and at this time, the world needs it because there might be a call that needs to be made to come out of Babylon, if you catch my drift. There are some key points in his message. We are not just an organization, we are a movement, which I love that. The world is confused, the church must be clear. And thirdly, we must be united, mission-focused, and faithful to Bible truth in the final hour. And I like to just repeat that. It's coming all the way from the General Conference president, but this is something that every church board member, every member of a local church should just take into their heart, and that is this. We all have to be united. Doesn't matter what church building you belong to, what you call your name in, like, for example, Camelback Church and Paradise Valley Church and Mountain View Church and the Chandler Church. We're all mission focused and we're all just one people, right? And we all have to be faithful to Bible truth, because we are coming close to the final hour. So there was a call to consecration, and many of you who are not sure what that word means, consecration means just setting aside and dedicating your life to a mission. So at the closing appeal, delegates and attendees were invited to commit to 4 things. And so maybe this is a chance right now for you and I to make these same commitments. Number 1, evangelism in your local community. Just spreading the gospel in whatever way through some sort of maybe a center of influence, a program that you're doing in community services. It could be your Pathfinder Club. It could be a sermon series on the gospel. Whatever it is, commit to evangelism in your community. Number 2, have a personal revival. Focus on where you are in your personal Bible study. Maybe you read the Bible, but maybe it's only once or twice a week. Maybe commit to just 30 seconds a day. You can do that on Future of Hope at 6 in the morning. I do a devotion. It's just 30 to 45 seconds. Just tune in at 6 a.m. You can do one, join me at 10 a.m., which I do another devotional on history in the Bible. And make a commitment to making a personal revival at 2 in the afternoon and 6 at night, where I talk about prophecy and stories of faith. But personal revival was the second area. There was another appeal for delegates and attendees to commit to supporting youth, new believers, and unreached regions. So that was the third area. So evangelism, personal revival, and supporting youth, new believers, and unreached regions. And the fourth area was boldly proclaiming the 3 angels' message. Now, many of you who are fans of the Future of Hope Ministries website or Future of Hope YouTube channel, the 3 angels' message is the gospel that will go out at the final day, and it's found in Revelation chapter 14. So if you read Revelation chapter 14, it talks about these 3 angels proclaiming an everlasting gospel. And this is the final gospel that will be preached in our day today. So there was a closing appeal and an invitation to commit to understanding and boldly proclaiming the 3 angels' message. Now, there were some main controversies and tension points that were raised at this General Conference session in 2025. And as I think about the controversies, it really falls into 3 areas: immunization agenda, church manual, power in governance, and then public affairs and religious liberty pressures. So very quickly, on day 1, July 3rd, there was already at the very beginning a motion to revisit the church's 2015 immunization stance. And that motion was presented. The delegates, though, rejected it by a very wide margin, with leadership reaffirming that vaccination remains a personal medical choice, not mandated by the denomination. So that was the position that the church took on immunization. They said that leave that decision up to the individual. This is not the place for the church to create a policy. Okay, number two, the other main controversy or main tension point, and that is it involved several amendments aimed to strengthen the executive authority or executive committee authority at the General Conference, such as centralizing nomination power and adjusting disciplinary protocols. So the critics were arguing that the manual is becoming overly authoritative, and it's moving away from Scripture as the ultimate guide, echoing similar concerns from past sessions. So there was an impact on that of that controversy, and that is this. There was definitely, you can sense a tension between church autonomy and a centralized global governance. All right, so basically a local church autonomy versus a centralized global governance that occurs at some place at a higher level halfway around the world, right? So there were calls for clearer boundaries on how and when the manual can evolve. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the next several months and in the next 2 years, because we're going to see a lot more changing in sort of how the executive committee is going to exercise its authority. Okay, the third area was definitely in public affairs and religious liberty. The Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Department report highlighted increasing global challenges, as I talked about, the anti-conversion laws, Sabbath violations, digital surveillance. And though widely affirmed, some delegates debated whether the church was going far enough in calling for legislative change and stronger advocacy. So some delegates wanted us to go even further and take it all the way to the tops of the legislatures and maybe even file. Some were thinking about filing lawsuits. The discussion around how Adventists engage with governments, should they lead in defending conscious rights or focus more inward? So again, this is one of those tensions that did not get resolved. We're still looking at that right now. So there were one final thing I want to talk about was an ideological tension, and that was fear versus grace vision. Okay, independent commentary, for example, Adventists Today claimed the session leaned toward a fear-based prophetic warning tone, sidelining themes of grace, justice, and cultural relevance. Okay, so basically, the ideological tension there is, are we too much prophecy tone, fear-based preaching? Is this what we're about? And are we sidelining themes like God's grace, justice, cultural relevance for areas where we see tensions in our local communities over the last 4 years? So, I mean, from your local area, you're seeing this tension. If you're here in the United States, several years ago, it was Black Lives Matter. The whole vaccine with COVID-19. Right now, it's the immunization issue. So there's some critics who noted inadequate attention to some of these areas. And then they included areas like women's ordination, climate issues, mental health, and modern social justice. Okay, so again, we're a movement, but yet we're dealing with the world as it is. And what is the church, what are we doing about that? So the concerns the church may be losing younger members and that the tone may alienate progressive segments desiring a more inclusive theology. This is definitely something that the leaders and the church needs to think about, talk about, because we are losing a generation that is a lot more concerned about being relevant culturally and looking at social justice issues as well as environmental issues that we all know that we're experiencing right now. So just a summary of the tensions that are happening that came out of the General Conference. Immunization, that was personal freedom versus church position. The church manual authority, centralized control versus local discernment. The third area is public affairs strategy, advocacy leadership versus limited spiritual focus. What's our church tone? What are we about? Are we more about prophetic warnings versus a grace-driven mission? And finally, cultural relevance. So we're looking at doctrinal purity versus social justice emphasis. So, and even though I was able to encapsulate it in language, I think many who are watching right now would agree that these are areas that maybe you have thought about as well. What are we doing about areas that need to be focused on? So just a few thoughts here. While there was no major schism that occurred, you could definitely feel undercurrents of dissent, and it was palpable, especially around governance methods and mission tone. And so for the next few years, we might see three things: a call for greater transparency and member participation on statements and policies. That's number one. Number two, we might see continued debate on balancing scripture-driven governance with global organizational needs. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And then the third area that we're going to see, I think, in the next few years is a wrestling over whether the church's prophetic voice should lean harder on warnings or lean more on the side of love and relevance in a cultural engagement scenario. There were some closing resolutions and some takeaways here. Definitely what happened, we had new leadership finalized. So your division and your union now have new voices that are shaping the direction in your regions. Two, we saw policy changes approved. So we can expect updates in the church manual, pastoral structure, and mission alignment, which I'm personally going to be interested to see how they're going to restructure pastoral ministries. Third area was religious liberty defense. What it means for us is standing firm for conscience and Sabbath rights in your local region. Number four, youth and women were affirmed. So local churches are urged to empower these ministries more intentionally. So youth, young adult, and women ministries. And then I think that the fifth area is global missions was emphasized. So basically the message is now is the time to go locally and globally. And that was the end of the General Conference session. But as you know, that was just a session. We continue to move on. The mission continues on everywhere around the globe in your local region as well. So I think that in summary, this General Conference session, you got the sense that it wasn't just a conference. It was really a reminder of a prophetic movement. I feel the Holy Spirit was there. It was calling every believer to take their place in the final gospel movement. And this is why I'm doing this update, is for those of you watching, if you're interested in finding your place in the gospel movement, then pray about it. Let the Holy Spirit work through you. And then you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to a local church, wherever you might be, and say, I want to be involved. And I think now is the time to do that. So whether you're in a small rural church, because I have many subscribers in places like Montana and the rural regions of the Midwest, or you might be in a major city. So we have a lot of viewers from the major cities around the globe. The message is that you are all part of a church that's called to shine light into darkness. And you are part of a people, a movement to proclaim truth in love and to prepare the world for the return of Jesus Christ. So that wraps up my final report for this year's very rare General Conference session and how it was approached. If you had the ability of watching, or if you were watching some of the updates on Facebook or YouTube or websites, comment below, and I'd be interested to hear what your impression was. Tell me what inspired you, but more than that, what is your church going to do? What are you guys planning on doing in the next months or the next year? And again, I want to thank everyone who is following the Future of Hope Ministries. I'm Pastor Ed Anderson. Like, share, subscribe to this channel. It definitely helps with the YouTube algorithm, get it out to everyone who's interested in these areas of subject areas like God's love, prophecy, and just devotion and Bible study. There are many programs on the Future of Hope channel, and stay alert. I'm giving updates daily, and watch out for new global mission opportunities for you. So until next time, I will see you live again on Sunday, this coming Sunday, July I believe the 20th. at 7:30 for the Gospel Lounge Hour Live. Watch out for new material that's popping up on Friday, Sunday morning, which is the Road Back to You series that deals with mental health. And I will be doing an evangelistic campaign here in Arizona this weekend, and then I will take the show on the road again, and I will see everyone in the next few weeks in the Philippines. So I'll be doing 4 large evangelistic campaigns there in Valencia City and Zamboanga City. So pray for us as we do that. But until I see you all again, may the good Lord bless and keep you until we meet again. God bless everyone.